In this video, we'll dive into the surprising collapse of Russia's once-feared tank force in the ongoing war in Ukraine. Once regarded as a powerhouse of armored might, Russia's tank fleet is now facing an unprecedented crisis, struggling with devastating losses, outdated technology, and production challenges. We'll explore how Russia's poor battlefield tactics, drone vulnerabilities, and industrial limitations are rapidly diminishing its armored capabilities, and what this could mean for the future of the conflict. Russia's tank fleet, once regarded as a symbol of its military might, is facing an unprecedented crisis, and the implications of this situation stretch far beyond the battlefield. The war in Ukraine has laid bare the weaknesses in Russia's once-vaunted armored forces, exposing not only tactical miscalculations, but also fundamental issues with its industrial capabilities and the sustainability of its military assets. As we explore the current state of Russia's tank fleet, the trajectory of its decline, and the factors contributing to these challenges, it becomes increasingly clear that Moscow's armored forces are in a dire situation. Whether Russia can recover from these losses or adapt to its new reality remains a pressing question as the conflict rages on. The most iconic image of the early stages of the war in Ukraine was a stalled Russian tank column outside Kyiv, stretching for dozens of miles. At the time, it was hailed as a symbol of Russian military incompetence. For Western observers, this image offered hope that Ukraine could not only defend itself, but also potentially win the war. It marked a pivotal moment in the conflict as Western nations, fearing Russian armored columns for decades, ramped up military aid to Ukraine. The sight of Russia's supposedly formidable tanks, stuck and vulnerable, was a stark contrast to the image of Russian military might that had long been promoted by Moscow. Russia, after all, had historically boasted one of the most powerful tank forces in the world. This reputation was rooted in the Soviet Union's achievements during World War II, where armored warfare played a crucial role in its victories over Nazi Germany. Soviet tank designs like the T-34 became legendary, and in the post-war era, Moscow continued to develop newer, more advanced tanks that it used to project power across Europe and beyond. However, recent conflicts, especially the ongoing war in Ukraine, have exposed deep vulnerabilities and inefficiencies within Russia's armored forces. Since the invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, Russia has suffered devastating tank losses. According to reliable estimates, as of July 6, 2024, Russia has lost at least 3,197 tanks in the conflict. Out of these, 2,153 were destroyed, a staggering destruction rate of nearly 68%. Additionally, 355 tanks were abandoned and 952 were captured by Ukrainian forces. Only 158 were damaged and potentially salvageable, meaning that for every tank Russia might be able to repair, over 13 others are being lost for good. These figures are likely understated, as independent assessments suggest that the real numbers could be even higher. The depletion of so many tanks raises a critical question. How long can Russia sustain such losses, and why are these losses so high in the first place? At first glance, it appears that Russian industry is keeping pace with the demand for tanks, at least according to official statements. In 2023, for instance, Russian officials, including former President Dmitry Medvedev, claimed that the country's industrial base could produce 1,500 main battle tanks per year. Sergei Chemezov, head of the Rostec arms-producing corporation, even asserted that Russia had increased its tank production sevenfold in 2023. However, a closer examination of these claims reveals significant caveats. Of the 2,100 tanks that Russia purportedly supplied to its military in 2023, a substantial number, 840, were not newly built but rather older tanks taken out of storage. Many of these were outdated T-62 and T-54/55 models, which had long been retired from active service. While some of these tanks received updates before being deployed to the front, their obsolescence means they cannot survive long in the modern battlefield environment. Moreover, independent assessments from sources like the Swedish Defense Research Agency paint a far less optimistic picture of Russian production capabilities. According to Swedish analysts, Russia is likely only capable of producing 520 new tanks per year, a fraction of the numbers claimed by Moscow. This discrepancy between Russia's claims and its actual production capacity has major implications for the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian forces are destroying Russian tanks at an alarming rate, with some estimates suggesting that Russia is losing around 100 tanks per month. The situation is so dire that Russia has had to turn to increasingly outdated models to replenish its forces. Satellite imagery of Russian storage sites, including those in remote regions like Siberia, has shown a steady removal of archaic tanks over the course of the war. These tanks are often quickly upgraded and sent to the front lines, where they are expected to endure the brutal realities of modern warfare. However, these tanks, with their outdated designs and limited capabilities, are simply not up to the task of surviving in the face of Ukraine's increasingly advanced military tactics. Russia's heavy tank losses are not only a result of outdated equipment, but also a reflection of poor battlefield tactics and an inability to adapt to modern warfare. Russian military doctrine has long placed a strong emphasis on tanks, particularly in the concept of deep battle, a strategy that involves using large waves of armored units to assault enemy positions and puncture through their defenses. This strategy, while effective in certain historical contexts, relies on flawless execution, including precise logistics and deception to mask the location of assaults. Without these conditions, tank assaults can lead to catastrophic losses. Even when deep battle worked during World War II, it was costly for the Soviet Union. At the Battle of Kursk in 1943, for example, the Soviets suffered between 1,160 and 1,900 tanks destroyed, compared to 280 destroyed German tanks. The cost of such operations was immense, yet the Soviet Union's sheer manpower and industrial base allowed it to endure these losses. Today's Russia, however, faces a very different set of circumstances. Its economy, strained by sanctions, is less equipped to handle the demands of a protracted war, and its military tactics have not evolved to match the advances in technology and battlefield dynamics. One of the most significant technological shifts in the war has been the rise of drone warfare. Ukraine has effectively used drones, both expensive, high-flying models like Turkey's Bayraktar TB2 and cheaper first-person view drones, to target Russian tanks. The cost asymmetry is striking. FPV drones, which cost only a few hundred to a few $1,000s, are destroying Russian tanks worth millions of dollars. This phenomenon has been particularly devastating for Russia, as its tanks are often poorly camouflaged and vulnerable to drone strikes. Unlike some Western tanks, which have better protection systems, Russian tanks are highly susceptible to catastrophic explosions when hit. In addition to production challenges, Russia faces another significant hurdle: the repair and maintenance of its damaged tanks. While Russia has a number of major military repair plants, including the 103rd Armored Tank Repair Plant in Transbaikal Oblast and the 163rd Armored Repair Plant in Krasnodar Krai, these facilities have struggled to keep up with demand. Satellite imagery has shown long queues of tanks awaiting repair at these facilities, suggesting that Russia's ability to repair and return tanks to the battlefield is severely limited. Furthermore, Russia's tank fleet may have been smaller than originally thought. In 2021, Russia was believed to have around 12,500 tanks, but a detailed satellite analysis conducted by France's Institut Action Résilience in 2024 suggested that the real number was closer to 6,000 or 7,000. If this estimate is accurate, Ukraine has already made casualties of over half of Russia's entire pre-war tank fleet, and Russia's ability to replenish these losses is severely constrained. Russia's woes extend beyond just tanks. The loss of armored recovery vehicles ARVs, which are essential for retrieving damaged tanks from the battlefield, has further exacerbated the problem. As of July 2024, at least 131 Russian recovery vehicles had been lost, making it even more difficult for Russia to recover and repair damaged tanks. This creates a vicious cycle where more tanks are abandoned or captured, further depleting Russia's armored forces. Looking ahead, the future of Russia's tank fleet appears bleak. While some analysts, including those at the UK Ministry of Defense, believe that Russia will not run out of tanks entirely, the reality is that Russia's ability to field a meaningful armored force is rapidly diminishing. The tanks that Russia is producing are often of lower quality than the ones lost early in the war, and Western sanctions have made it difficult for Russian industry to acquire the components needed to maintain the same level of quality. As a result, the new tanks being produced are likely to be lost at an even faster rate than their predecessors. Russia's reliance on outdated Soviet-era designs, combined with its failure to adapt to modern warfare tactics, has left its tank fleet vulnerable to destruction. Unless Russia can find a way to improve its production capabilities, repair its damaged tanks more effectively, and adapt its battlefield tactics, it is at serious risk of running out of tanks by 2026. Even if it does not completely run out of tanks, the reduced size and quality of its fleet will severely limit its ability to conduct meaningful armored operations, putting its broader war effort in jeopardy. In conclusion, the war in Ukraine has exposed the deep vulnerabilities within Russia's once-feared tank fleet. With losses mounting and production struggling to keep pace, Russia's ability to sustain its armored forces is rapidly diminishing. The iconic image of the stalled tank column outside Kyiv, once a symbol of Russian incompetence, has become emblematic of a larger problem. Russia's tank force is quite literally running out of steam. If Ukraine continues to receive Western support and maintain its technological edge, it has a real chance of outlasting Russia in this war of attrition. The era of Russian tank dominance may be coming to an end, with profound consequences for the future of armored warfare in Europe and beyond.